Hi guys, I'm Chris, I'm an osteopath, and today we're joined again by James Hayden, 2-time winner of the Transcontinental bike race. If you haven't seen it already, we made a video a few weeks ago, which I'll link up here somewhere, which is James's top 5 mobility tips for cyclists. Today we're going to be running through top 5 strength exercises for cyclists. If you haven't heard about it, look up the Transcontinental bike race. It's an insane feat of human achievement, and it's been super interesting talking to James and hearing about his training routine and how strength and mobility and exercise helps him on the bike and helps him off the bike as well. So today I'm going to ask James how strength integrates into his cycling and what benefit he gets in his body.
Cool, thanks for having me here, Chris. So I never really used to do much strength work because, typically cyclists just don't do strength work. However, over the years, I started to have more injuries and issues. And as I was riding longer and longer distances, I found that I needed to add something else to enable myself to perform at that level. And I found that strength work has become a staple in my diet as a cyclist.
A common theme I get from my patients is that many cyclists avoid strength work because they think they're going to get too heavy, it's going to hinder them going uphill. How do you find that?
It's a complete misconception, actually. So I can do probably around 12 pull-ups now, which is like a reasonable amount of pull-ups. I'm not, super strong, but I'm reasonably strong. And as an endurance athlete, even doing strength work, I'm not going to get big at all. I'm still weighing in around 71.5 kilograms at 183 centimeters, so I'm light and little. But I'm really quite functionally strong as well. So no, you're not going to suddenly look like Ronnie Coleman if you do a few push-ups at all, no.
Lightweight.
They work very hard for that.
Yeah. We were chatting earlier today and you were telling me you've got 2 primary philosophies with your weight training and how you like to have some general exercises that you'll do most weeks, but then what I like when I talk to you is that you really pay attention to your body and you might have a certain focus for either an upcoming event or a particular injury. How do you go about that when you're planning, say, a workout?
Yeah, so I have my general sort of strength exercises, my core ones, so to speak. They're not just for my core, but they're my staple diet of strength exercises that I do week in, week out. And then I will supplement those with further sort of more niche exercises based on injuries that I might have at that time, injuries I might have had in the past that need managing, or perhaps event-specific exercises that I need to do. And I will add those on to the other exercises.
So I'm particularly interested there in the event-specific exercises. So what do you mean by event-specific? What might you need in some events compared to others?
Yeah. So it's worth adding that I used to race primarily and singularly on the road. So on tarmac where it is quite smooth and it is quite, linear. But I race a lot of mountain bike events now, so off-road events, and it's not linear at all. You're all over the shop and you need a lot more upper body strength to muscle the bike around. Now, I, in some races, will end up sort of hiking with the bike on my back up a mountain because you can't cycle up it. It's impassable. And so I sat down and thought, how can I break that movement down to exercises? And one of the exercises that I came up with that I really like is a lunge, a walking lunge with some chains and some weight on my back that simulates the weight of the bike and then a bit more. And then because I'm walking along using my glutes and my hamstrings, it's really quite good training for that. So I will think about the event, what I'm going to be doing in the event, and break that down to an exercise that I can do daily to help.
And then before we get into some of your, we'll give some examples of some core and some specific exercises. How many times a week relative to your cycling would you focus on strength?
Yeah, it's worth adding that for me, strength work is very much a secondary thing. I like riding my bike. I do strength work to enable me to ride my bike and also just to be a healthy individual so that I can, lift a box up without worrying about it or as I get older, look after my body and to prevent injury. So I don't plan it quite as much, but I will aim for 30 minutes to an hour, and that's as long as my sessions will take, up to maximum 1 hour. Over that, I'm done. Yeah. If you can't do it in an hour, you're wasting time probably. And I will often do circuits. So I do one exercise and another one. So I might do back and legs simultaneously almost, and then take a rest and then keep doing that. Supersetting, I think, is what they call it, to maximize my time. And I will do that probably 2 to 3 times a week. So it's not much. It's a small investment, 2 to 3 hours most a week. And I find that's more than enough to get the strength level that I need, without, going too far, because it is a secondary thing for me.
Nice. I definitely follow that philosophy as well. If you're weight training for more than an hour, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah, unless you want to be a bodybuilder
Exactly.
or a strongman, it's not needed.
Yeah, totally. Right, well, let's get into some of James's favourite exercises that help him through the week. So, are there any exercises that you could do every week that help keep your hips strong and your core strong?
So I have a lot of exercises that I will do, but we could probably break them down into 5 main exercises, and then you can do derivations of them if you wish, and it keeps it nice and simple for people watching. The first one, and the most important one for me, would be the squat. There are lots of variations of the squat, and I will actually do multiples of them. My favorite would probably be the goblet squat. So that would be with a kettlebell in your chest, and you drop down between your legs.
I really like the goblet squat as well. The goblet squat, with the weights that you're holding being in front of your center of gravity, it allows people to typically get a little bit lower than they would if the weight was on their shoulders or if they were holding it by their side. So it's something that I find can help people who have limited hip mobility get lower into their squat, because if you can squat with your hips below your knees, it's going to help your hip health, your gut health, and your core strength and your spinal health. So the goblet squat is a nice way into deep squatting if you feel restricted through your ankles or hips to begin with. What's next on your list, James?
So the second one on my list would be the press up. Cyclists might think, why do I do a press up? I don't need to do a press up. I don't need to, build some chest strength. But the press up is about more than just chest strength. It's good for your shoulders. It is good for your chest. It's good for your back. It's good for your core. So, and it brings everything together quite well, I find. And it sort of helps to work muscles that might become tight and restricted, stuck in that cycling posture all the time. So it builds strength to kind of oppose that cycling posture. And no, you're not suddenly going to develop massive biceps by doing a few push-ups.
I like that as well. People think that with cycling, with your hands being in front of you, you'll get a tight chest. But if you really focus on what we call the eccentric phase, which is the phase where you're going down in the press up, that is using your chest muscle but stretching it at the same time. So while you're strengthening your chest, you're not necessarily tightening your chest as well, as long as you're going through a nice long range of motion while you're doing it. And it was also interesting linking it to your mountain biking, where you really need that upper body strength to wrestle the bike, I think you said, and you manhandle the bike while you're bouncing all over the place. So totally, upper body strength will help you as a cyclist. You mentioned earlier walking lunges. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I find lunges is a really important exercise for me. I like to do them walking, so along a line for maybe 5 to 10 steps on each side, rather than just doing them static, because I find that doing them walking really adds to the dynamic movement of them and makes it quite a bit harder. I don't do them super deep, but I will do them reasonably deep with a good length, and obviously slowly, and I will add weight onto my back as suitable as I progress with that, and that sort of does replicate the carrying of the bicycle on my back, and it's a really good thrust movement through the quads and the hamstrings, so it relates quite well to the cycling action.
And the great thing about with the walking lunge, I guess any lunge, but when you're trying to travel over the ground with weight, each time one foot is off the floor, your core is going crazy to try and stabilize the pelvis in space, stabilize the weight that you're carrying either on your shoulders or in your hands. So it really is a core exercise, and as you're trying to control the lateral movement on a bike, you're training the lateral movement of your pelvis and core through walking lunges. So it's getting your tummy and spine as well as your hips and thighs. So a good all-rounder for cyclists.
I think that's a really good point you made just there about the core. You won't see me doing ab crunches or anything like that because it's a con. If you want to build a strong core, it's through doing squats, it's through doing lunges, it's through doing deadlifts, through doing pull-ups, through doing push-ups. That's how you build core strength. It's not through doing ab crunches, which are a waste of your time. Unless you want a six-pack and only a six-pack.
Yeah. Well, cycling probably gets you a good six-pack as well if you're lean enough. But I say the same. I think the word core gets misused in the fitness space. A good core is where your shoulders can talk to your spine, can talk to your hips, can talk to your feet, and they can all communicate together through strength and coordination from the nervous system. So a core is basically everything. You can't isolate it with a few crunches and a sit-up machine. So it's about getting everything talking. Having said that, you do like a particular movement that would be normally categorized as a core movement. That's the plank. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I find that the plank is very useful because it sort of does replicate that sitting in bike position and helps to build similar strength in those muscles. There are lots of ways that you can, and I do the plank, and it sort of depends on how I feel on any given day. You could do it on your elbows, you could do it on your hands, you could do it on a Swiss ball as well. And I found that the dynamic movement of the Swiss ball really adds to the toughness of doing the plank. And it's obviously a bit more of an advanced move, but it's very relatable to cycling and being in the cycling position.
I'm a fan of the plank as well, particularly dynamic plank. And the way I think of the core is it's a big balloon of muscle that attaches to our spine, to our pelvis, to our thorax. So if you can create a separation between your thorax and your pelvis, if you can twist and turn and make this part move in a different way to this part, you're stretching and loading the core muscles that's then having to stabilize all of that movement. So the Swiss ball and then or just moving your feet, moving your hands while in a plank position is a way of creating that coordination map around your spine and pelvis. So I like it too. And then lastly, maybe another one that people wouldn't typically throw into the cyclist exercise camp, but you like the pull-up. And what benefits do you find from that, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, I think the pull-up, it could be categorized as not necessary in some ways, though I think having upper body strength is very useful. You're not suddenly going to develop massive lats or be ripped by doing a few pull-ups, but you are going to be sort of, functionally strong in your everyday life and healthy. Primarily I got into cycling because I like being healthy. I then started racing and it kind of became a bit unhealthy. But I think to be able to do pull-ups is a healthy activity to sort of lengthen your active racing life, really. So the time that I'm going to be able to do this for.
For me, I like the pull-up. There are a few baseline strengths that I think most active people should have. So can you squat with your hips below your knees? I think that's one little milestone that most people should be able to do. Can you do a few press-ups? Can you do at least one pull-up? If you can do one pull-up, it's a sign that you're not too heavy for your body weight and you're strong enough to control your body. So I like to throw pull-ups in as just one of those metrics that it's a good thing to do. It's something that we don't test ourselves in day-to-day life at all, really. There aren't any moments where I'm pulling myself over something.
Saying that, I found myself, when I was racing in Italy, we had to cross this ditch and there was a wall on the other side. And once I got down, the wall was about up here. And I got my bike up and over it, and then I had to pull myself up and over this wall. And I could do that because I had that pull-up strength, but some other people couldn't do that and had to go around. So there have been occasions, and when I've been swimming recently, getting out of the river and things, where I've used that strength that I have. So yeah, it's come quite useful.
That's totally what I mean. So we don't use it in normal life, but when you need it, you really need it. So if you need to climb out a river and you're not strong enough, that's a problem. And if you need to jump over a fence because you're being chased by a dog, not that that happens very often, but you're going to need that strength in that moment. And this is why I think training is so important, because it prepares you for those 1% moments in life. And that's super interesting to hear you've had to use it in a race. So the exercises here are just a small part of James's routine. Maybe you could tell us briefly about how you might think about the other exercises you do.
Yeah, so all of the exercises that I've given today are ones that you can and that I have done at home with almost no equipment, and I wanted to keep it simple. I also haven't been able to go to a physical gym in several months now, and I don't really also like going to gyms. So I try and keep the exercises and the workouts I do very simple, so that I can do them almost anywhere at any time. So if I have half an hour free and I'm waiting for something, I could do my workout there and then. I don't need to go to a gym and get dressed in a certain way. I can just do it. So there are exercises I haven't mentioned, like the deadlift, which is very important to me. I love the deadlift, but you do need heavy weights to do it. I can't do it at home. I don't have a big enough bar. So there are other things that I would do, but everything that I've mentioned here is enough to give you a full workout.
Yeah, you've totally hit the fundamental human movement patterns of squat, hip hinge, press, pull, bit of core training. So there are a few fundamentals that we should just be hitting in most of our workouts, I think, and you've hit all of them with your chosen 5 there. Nice. Well, thanks very much to James again for being here. And if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. I like to put out exercise videos, but also lifestyle videos. My thing is I like to use intentional living to lead to a healthier life. So if you like this sort of video, follow along and maybe you'll like the next one next time. Thanks very much.